The average consumer buys 60% more clothes than they did 20 years ago.
We buy way too much and we throw it away without a second thought.
It's not just the smell, it's toxic.
They're actually misleading the consumer.
We're killing our planet, and we have way less time than we think we do to fix it.
It's unsustainable.
Over the past decade, it has been extremely easy to buy clothes. Whether in-store or online, you can find almost any type of clothing for a variety of costs. With the constant growth of trends on social media, consumers are willing to purchase anything if it's trending, and they most likely don't realize what they're supporting. Due to the increasingly fast rate of how trends come and go, retailers in the fashion industry must operate at a similar rate to reach a wider scale of customers. This causes clothing items to be produced just for the buyer to discard it after the trend quickly dies out. Common today, many stores in the fashion industry can be labeled as fast fashion, referring to the fast rate of clothing being produced and put on shelves. National Geographic defines fast fashion as mass-produced, ultra-trendy, inexpensive clothing made with cheap fabrics that are made at breakneck speeds by low-wage workers. While fast fashion offers affordable options that may seem appealing and convenient, the fashion industry negatively impacts the environment through its intensive resource use and clothing waste generation.
When we pump out cheaply made clothes with chemical dyes and synthetic materials, they quickly pile up, causing damage to the surrounding environment.
With the excessive amount of clothing produced in the industry, methods of production allow for necessary elements to be wasted, like water for cotton to grow or unused fabric dye to be dumped into nearby water systems. This impacts the health of animals and residents as the toxic polluted water runs off into water sources around production sites. Additionally, environmental health states that those who work in or live near textile manufacturing facilities bear a disproportionate burden of environmental health hazards. Even as consumers, simply washing these poorly made clothes releases microplastics into water sources like polyester fabrics.
Are essentially plastic and will never biodegrade, kind of like a plastic bag or a plastic straw.
Another quote says, approximately 85% of the clothing Americans consume, nearly 3.8 billion pounds annually, is sent to landfills as solid waste. Fast fashion clothes are not made to last, so purchasing affordable items comes with a cost. The main goal the industry encourages is for clothing to be easily and quickly disposed of by its consumers, so the quality does not matter to the producers.
The fabric is really bad quality, and there's a good chance that this is just gonna rip really soon. What we have here is just really poor quality, loosely woven fabric that can't hold up to any kind of strain or pressure.
While the majority of the problems lie in the hands of fast fashion producers, the behaviors of consumers are another major cause for the fashion crisis that we can change to see significant improvements.
Fashion Nova haul. Let's open her up, girl.
Let's do a clothing unboxing haul.
Clothing hauls make up a major portion of social media content within teenagers. If you've ever scrolled on TikTok, there's no doubt you've come across at least a few clothing haul videos. The reality behind these videos is the fact that content creators are not only enabling harmful shopping behaviors for their audience, but encouraging them to support large clothing retailers in the fashion industry.
I am bringing you yet another huge unboxing.
An article by Christopher Teague of Inside Climate News suggests that social media's heavy presence on teens pressures youth and young adults to never wear the same outfit twice. This enables overconsumption of clothes. Social media influences Gen Z to buy clothes they won't necessarily wear after impulsively buying the clothes worn by creators or ones in the constantly changing trends, contributing to immense amounts of clothing waste.
These are the platform mini Uggs.
I got this denim skirt set.
Really, all my bathing suits are from Shein because they're amazing.
One of the most popular fast fashion retailers that markets to young teenagers, Shein, based out of China, offers between 700 and 1,000 new styles every single day, a tactic to reach more customers and keep up with these micro-trends. At the rise of Shein's popularity in 2022, The brand was valued at nearly $100 billion due to its major social media presence among almost every single platform. Sandy Black's Rutledge Handbook of Sustainability in Fashion dives into how ideas about fashion are organized around commerce and consumerism, and how it is usual to discard rather than repair, which explains teens' relationship with buying clothes. Another quote in the reading that perfectly sums up social media and consumerism is the fact that we communicate through the social language of position and status determined by what we buy. Teens' social status is heavily reflected in social media, which explains why teens impulsively buy clothing showing through hauls or advertisements.
Valuing clothes that we own is not the cultural norm. Think, oh, I've worn that top on Instagram, so I don't want to wear it again. This is how we've been taught to engage with our clothes.
There have been many attempts by organizations to ensure fashion companies are being sustainable, but many failed. The United Nations, an organization dedicated to addressing international issues, works towards sustainable development by having 17 goals in place. Some of these goals include no poverty or hunger, clean water, climate action, and responsible consumption and production. The United Nations goal number 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, is, quote, key to sustain the livelihoods of current and future generations. The UN ensures this goal by listing ways consumers and businesses can help reduce consumption waste to impact our society for the better. They state that governments need to implement and enforce policies and regulations to further promote reduced consumption. While this goal has led to some fashion companies being accountable for their clothing's impacts and others pledging to cut down on emissions or turn to more renewable energy sources, other companies like H&M felt they could profit off of being sustainable.
So what they're doing is they're actually misleading the consumer into thinking that those products are made sustainably by using those kinds of words and making the assumption that the consumer does not know any better and doesn't have the time to actually do the research.
She says she's seen it all, including companies greenwashing their way into Canadian closets.
Greenwashing can be defined as the act of making false or misleading statements about the environmental benefits of a product or practice, and it is a pretty common yet harmful marketing strategy. Greenwashing is used to manipulate consumers into thinking of retailers' clothing are sustainable, even if they aren't.
They came out with this line that is supposed to be more sustainable, so I wanted to check it out. I ordered so much clothes from it.
Most consumers don't do research before buying, so stores take advantage of them by marketing their clothes as sustainable. H&M's misleading sustainability clothing line proves that even with the UN's goals in place, there aren't many physical laws that can avoid false advertising about sustainable clothing. Holding companies accountable is not always the most effective or impactful way to see direct change. We know that Gen Z buys the most clothing compared to past generations, but they're also known to be a sustainable generation, being extremely conscious of environmental issues. Why aren't most of them conscious of the clothing they buy? 74% of millennials and 62% of Gen Z are willing to pay more for sustainable goods. This should be the same for Gen Z when buying clothes, but it isn't. While there have been more clothing brands promoting sustainability, fast fashion's discardable clothing seems to still be the more popular option, as there is little to no impact by holding major clothing retailers accountable for. Getting consumers to change their behaviors when purchasing clothing is one step closer to finding a solution to the problems that arise with supporting fast fashion. Changing consumer behavior is an important step to see change in the fashion industry as quickly as possible, and educating consumers on how their habits have a large impact on the environment is beneficial. With changing consumer habits and behaviors, alternatives to fast fashion must be presented to Gen Z, like upcycling and supporting secondhand clothing.
It's so much easier to DIY, and it doesn't require nearly as much time or resources compared to recycling. By upcycling your old clothes, you're just making use of the fabrics and clothing as is without having to convert them into another textile at a recycling center.
Various popular clothing companies have taken the idea of upcycling, which involves reusing pre-existing garments and fabrics, and giving them a new life. While upcycling was deemed to be the most popular clothing trend in 2021, encouraging creativity in clothing, It has since decreased in popularity, but is slowly making its way back onto social media platforms. Upcycling can also include making your own clothes by taking unused clothes from the back of your closet and cutting or adding material to it to avoid throwing out clothes, which contributes to clothing waste. Another way for consumers to change their shopping habits would be to buy secondhand clothes from a thrift store, consignment shop, or even from your friends who may want to get rid of their unworn clothes. Thrifting is described as a sustainable and ethical alternative to quick fashion. It is a very beneficial alternative as it allows consumers to save money while still keeping up with trends and having a variety of clothes that won't fall apart after a few washes. When you are shopping secondhand, you are also helping manage clothing waste so it doesn't end up in landfills. Thrifting and upcycling's easy access and benefits prove that the convenience of buying fast fashion does not justify its negative environmental impact. Instead of supporting fast fashion as a budget-friendly option, thrifting allows for a similar experience with the opportunity to find trending clothing or even to explore one's individual style. Overall, thrifting is viewed as a means to lessen the fast fashion industry's harmful effects on the environment, so why would a consumer still support this? The behaviors of consumers must change in order for companies to start changing their production habits as well. Problems like clothing waste and pollution aren't only a few negative effects as a result of supporting the fast fashion industry. Consumers must make an effort to make smarter decisions when purchasing clothes. Instead of running to the mall to buy that trendy item you saw on TikTok, think about how the item was made, if you would wear it after the trend dies, and consider shopping secondhand instead. Fast fashion's appealing costs and convenience comes at a high cost and does not justify its harmful negative effects.